This is the Nasserman Hockey Podcast with James Nichols and John Zella. And welcome back to an episode of the Nasserman Hockey Podcast. James Nichols and John Zella here as always. What's going on, John?
Not a whole lot. I was able to work outside today, and that felt good.
Nice.
So I'm feeling positive, ready to talk about some Islanders hockey or
Hell yeah.
whatever it is Islanders fans or want to hear about the nothingness that is happening. I don't know. We have to figure that out.
Well said. And with that, let's get right to On the Island, brought to you by DraftKings. The games are underway, and DraftKings is bringing you the podium. DraftKings free-to-play pools are available every day of the games in Tokyo and offering a free shot at up to $50,000 in total cash prizes. That's up to $50,000 up for grabs, and best part is that it's free to play. DraftKings free-to-play pools are easy to enter. Just download the DraftKings app, go to pools, and choose from a wide variety of free contests for an opportunity to win cash prizes. All you have to do is answer a handful of questions around what you think is going to happen during that day's event and track your results throughout the evening to see if you will achieve victory. Download the top-rated DraftKings app now and use promo code THPN when you sign up to get your free shot at up to $50,000 in total cash prizes every day of the games in Tokyo. Head to DraftKings pools page to get your shot at huge cash prizes. That's promo code THPN for a limited time only. Only at DraftKings. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for more details. So let's talk a little bit about the radio silence that continues. And what's the strategy here in your mind? Now, I do want to just quickly mention a point that you put in here about our friend Jeff Capellini. He had this to say about it. You know, if the trade partners know how much cap space Lou has, it makes it easier for them to try and hold the Isles hostage on how much potential salary they can ask a partner to retain. So it's actually quite brilliant. What's your take on that?
I like it. I mean, it keeps other teams a little more honest about, different negotiations depending on what, they know what the Islanders' needs are, but they don't know how close to the cap they are. So
Right.
this creates, I think, a good opportunity for them to kind of leverage that. They do have quite a bit of space, but it's how much is taken up by these other players. What's the status of, aside from Pelech, which we'll talk about, no one really, it's not going to be a silent arbitration. That's never happened before.
Correct. Yeah.
So I think it's a good strategy. I think it's aggravating. I think I wrote that for the hockey writers. It's aggravating for us, not just as faux media, or whatever you want to call us, but writer, podcaster folk. It makes it aggravating for everybody, for fans alike. But on the other side, I think it sets them up for some success.
Yeah, I mean, 100% agree. It's brilliant. However, there's been a lot of speculation on this that I've heard from, the Friedmans and Mareks of the world moving forward, that the NHLPA might look into how to prevent this kind of thing from happening. Because, the issue could arise where if a player has a handshake agreement, likely how Parise and Palmieri and Cizikas have, and then they get hurt off ice, just living their lives somehow, kind of like how Pelech did a couple of years ago, with the soccer ball incident.
That was also a warm-up for a game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. But, I mean, a couple of years ago, PK Subban playing with his daughter got hurt on a trampoline, right? So if you have that handshake agreement in place and nothing's filed, technically there's, nothing to, go by if the player gets hurt. So
yeah,
you could walk away from that deal if it's just a handshake agreement. So it's genius for Lou. It's super team friendly, but it could be potentially disastrous for the player. Now,
I don't know. I don't know that Lou would do it. I think if something were to happen, it is what it is, and Lou has to eat it. I think he knows what he's doing, and there's some. I don't know if something's signed, and I'm not close enough to any of this. I don't know how it really works behind the scenes. We see those pictures with the player signing some, piece of paper. Who knows what, whatever that is.
Yeah. It's just a piece of paper that says, "Hey, buddy."
Yeah. It's in crayon. Their kids did it. Who knows? It's like some picture their kids did or something, or their brother, sister, or something. But I have to believe Lou's smarter than that. If he came up with this scheme, right? And you got to think, this is why he's been this type of thing is why he's GM of the year. 2 years in a row. I think it's those little things. And, Brisebois did a really good job too.
Yeah.
Within the bounds of the CBA and all those other rules, I think Lamoriello is kind of doing the same thing. Now, if they, like Martin Brodeur with the trapezoid, they kind of create it because of him, then they'll create rules. It's not a bad point. I just think he has his bases covered.
Yeah.
Like if something was going to happen.
Well, no, I mean,
then there's no way that there's nothing and he just gets he does not strike me as that type of person. With the way his character and all the things and how he runs his teams, now Lamoriello doesn't strike me as that. I think maybe other GMs that I'm not as familiar with, I can't speak to that. Lamoriello, no. There's
so you're saying if knock on wood, by chance Kyle Palmieri got hurt before the deal was filed, he would take care of him anyway and file it.
I think is what it is. Because
I can see that.
If it's bad enough, he goes on LTIR. It's whatever.
No, yeah, I could totally see that.
Now, I'm not saying there's an insurance issue that I'm not clear on, and I don't know how that works. If he gets hurt before now, it could be signed and not filed. I don't know. What does that mean? It's not filed with the league, but he has a contract with a team. Lamoriello is not going to file something that's going to get denied like Grubauer recently, right?
Who would know if that signature gets thrown in the furnace, though? You know what I mean?
Again, Lamoriello does not. I think he's ruthless when he needs to be, but he's very loyal.
No, I agree.
The high character mentality that he kind of puts upon his teams and his players,
which is kind of why you see guys like Zach Parise want to come back, right? He takes care of his own.
That's got to be part of it. I mean, I think it's what they built on Long Island. I think it's
that
this team in general, but some of it's got to be how he treats his players. Parise also left New Jersey, I want to say, while Lamoriello was there. Now, the draw to Minnesota, where he is from, to play with a buddy like Suter, and be a star on that team in your hometown. We know exactly what that's like for a player to do that, and has nothing to it maybe has nothing to do with the organization. Maybe it has everything to do with forces outside of your control.
Yeah,
who knows? So I just think that he's he seems like a high character guy. If somewhat ruthless, like I said, and very strict, but I don't think he wouldn't. He wouldn't expect anything out of anybody that he wouldn't also do. So I think there's lawyers were involved. They've figured it out. They're probably within the bounds of the NHLPA. Now, if something changes, I'd be willing to bet other GMs complained about it. And
that's what I was getting at. Yes,
that I could absolutely see. I don't know that the NHLPA, unless it's something egregious, I don't think anything's going to happen because the players would have to complain. Players aren't. I don't think the players are going to complain. That's it.
Right. And so that's exactly what I was going to say. If this changes, I think it would be at the cost of frustration. You think we're frustrated? The other GMs trying to make these deals have to be further frustrated than, faux media or even the fans who are constantly asking what's going on, because the GMs need to know to make these deals if they're going to make them. St. Louis is probably fuming at the fact that they're like, I don't know how much, cap to retain for Vladamir Tarasenko if I'm going to trade him to you, because I don't know how much you have. So,
so not only do you have to deal with Lamoriello and being a tough negotiator to begin with, then there's a lot of unknowns or known unknowns in this case where you're like, all right, they don't have all the cap space in the world, but he's telling me I have to retain. And I can't argue with him that he has the space because I don't know how much space he has. Right,
exactly. So, that's where it's listen, I'm of the party where I think it's genius on Lamoriello. As much as I want to know what's going on, it's a genius move because it's only working in his favor. I don't think that, and this was just pure speculation that this was going to be a problem moving forward. I don't think it's going to be, maybe not until at least Lou Lamoriello is no longer doing this, but I don't think anything changes. This is the Lamoriello way, and you're likely just going to have to get used to it.
Yeah, I mean we've always been a little bit in the dark. It's always seemed like after something happens, you're like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I always point that Pajot thing. I think everyone was looking for somebody at that deadline, like who are the Islanders going to add, and maybe I wasn't as plugged in as other folks. I did not see that coming. That seemed like a completely out of left field thing for me. I
Right.
never would have been like, "Oh, we're gonna look to Ottawa and we're gonna make a trade for this guy." Like I knew him a little bit, but it was like, wow, that was brilliant.
Right.
That was
And
so good.
how satisfying is it, after weeks or months of speculation, when the other shoe finally drops, you're like, wow, that's awesome. This is what we've been waiting for. Awesome. This is great.
Right. I mean,
You know,
even if people are guessing, like on the Cizikas deal, even if people are guessing,
yeah.
it does feel right. So like you kind of get that anticipation feeling.
Yeah.
And then when it drops, you're like, oh wow, okay, yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Like yeah, I think it's fine.
All right. So Elliot Friedman on the 31 Thoughts podcast, I believe he's been on a bunch lately that I've been listening to, so I'm losing track of where he's been. But I think it was on 31 Thoughts. Discusses Casey Cizikas's. Did I get that right? Did I word right?
Yeah, that's
Cizikas
fine.
is rumored to be signed to a 6-year deal at $2.5 million AAV. What are your thoughts on that? Yay or nay for that contract? He's 30 years old. It'll bring him into his age 36 season.
I don't know that GMs are as worried as the rest of us for term deals. I think they figure out
right.
ways to get around it. And so even if he's only there, even if he's only super effective 4 out of those 6 years, they'll find out what to do with him the rest, right? Even Lad, right? They figured out a way. Cizikas will be useful to somebody at 35. At that rate in 5 years from now, presumably the cap will have gone up even a little bit. I think that's totally fine. If anything, he's a 13th forward on this team. He's a vet guy,
right?
And he sticks around for $2.5 million.
Well,
fine.
so and that's
totally
something that I was going to say too is who's to say that at 35, 36 years old he's not going to be effective? We see Joe Pavelski making $6 million now. Granted, he's more of a first or second. He's more of a top 6 player with Dallas, right? Regardless, he's still 35, 36. He plays a tough game. It's not, there's no cookie cutter here talking player to player that, he's going to be broken down by 35, 36 years old. Now, also at a 2.5 million AAV in year 5 or year 6, let's say Casey Cizikas wasn't signed and there was no Cizikas for the Islanders, you might be looking for a bottom 6 guy for $2.5 million AAV. So really, this deal is fantastic if it does come to fruition, given the fact that it's been reported that the Seattle Kraken went after Cizikas hard, and he wanted $5 million. It almost happened, according to Friedman. So it was this close. And if you can't see my fingers, my pointer and my thumb are almost touching. That's how close it was. So listen, 2.5 for 6 years. He's going to be 36 when the deal expires. I take that all day.
I think too, and there was a little bit of an argument on Twitter, surprise, that on other teams, some people were saying on other teams, and I tend to agree, he's easily a third line center. Easily. Because he has an offensive upside. We've seen it in limited time. In just 2 seasons ago, or I guess 3 seasons ago, is 20 goals in 73 games.
Right.
That's and he gets 14 minutes a night, and that's not gone up. Right. He's been playing. That was the most, at the average time on ice, the highest of his career, but by like 30 seconds to a minute.
Right.
That's not that big of a deal. I mean, he shot like 18%, so there's that. But still, on other teams, he could be as high as a second line center.
Yeah,
because he's good at faceoffs. He would get a lot more playing time, maybe even 3 to 4 minutes more a night, because he's going to be on the ice more for faceoffs. He's a penalty killing guy.
Yeah.
He's got that offensive upside. He's going to be playing middle 6 minutes instead of bottom 6 minutes. You have a much better center on your hands, considering how strong they are down the middle with the Islanders. At $2.5 million, you take that for the short term. The Islanders' window is funky. depending on how you're looking at it.
Now
So
here's a good.
and for the years he's going to be the most effective, it's a good deal. After that,
Yeah.
like we discussed last week, you win the cup and then decide what's happening after that.
Here's a good player comp to cases Cizikas. Just signed in LA. Philip Deneau, few years younger, but he signed a 5-year, $5 million deal or $25 million deal, $5 million AAV. He doesn't put up a ton of points, Deneau, but he's more of a defensive forward. You might see him in Selke conversations, but Cizikas is of that ilk. Now he plays on the fourth line, but it's different for him because it's a different structure for the Islanders. They utilize the fourth line much more than any other team in the NHL, and they're the identity line. They have a purpose, right? It's not just a hodgepodge of players thrown together and yep, you're the fourth line. Go out there and create chaos. It's not like that. It's controlled chaos. That's how
I know that's a really good, controlled chaos is definitely right for them.
Yeah, so that's the point of their line. That's the point of his role, and the extra additive that he could provide a little bit of offense if you need it. He will, and at a $2.5 million AAV, I saw a lot of negative comments on that, saying that's not going to be worth it in 3-4 years. And I think the exact opposite. I think it's going to be extremely valuable in about 3, 4, 5 years.
And if they win a cup or continue to be this good at least, or make a cup final or whatever, he's going to be a reason that they get there. He's that the bottom six has proven to be a catalyst. In the playoffs. So I think that's super, super important.
Right.
And so not only does Lamoriello think this is a good deal, I have a feeling he's consulting Trotz to a certain degree in a lot of this.
100%. Yeah.
So if you're, I think they're on the same page a lot of the time. And I want the guys the coach wants. He's proven he can do pretty much anything with anybody. But if you actually get the guys that you want, and Trotz on record has said that he's the engine of this team, I think that's really important, if only for the locker room.
Yeah.
And he's a penalty killer, and he can be depended on to score here and there. I don't know what his playoff.
Rarely injured, mostly never out of the lineup. Like, he's just so many intangibles come with Casey Zizikas that he could have gotten maybe $3.5 million from Lamoriello, and I would have said, "Yep, worth it."
On this team, it's different. You have to the lens through which we understand this team, and I don't think other franchises, other media folk understand this about this team. But I think on this team, you can spend that much. I think 1.5 for Martin is fine. 2.5 for Cizikas. If Clutter comes back after this season, I personally think he's going to get cooked, and I don't know what they do. Frankly, I don't know if they throw Johnson on that line.
I wonder if that conversation starts soon.
I don't know. I think we've talked about that before. I think his injuries are catching up. I can't remember how old he is. I think after this season, it may be shorter term deal. Like, you might see a 2-year, $2 million deal for Clutter, or 1.5, like similar to Martin, to kind of match where Martin will be after this season. I think Martin will have 2 years left after this season.
Yeah.
Clutter may also find himself in a 2x2. If I had to guess,
right, it might match what Matt Martin has, because I think 2
by
what
2,
they're
2 by
thinking,
1.5, just so that they both kind of run out at the same time, or something along. Like, maybe I think Johnston is on the last year of his deal, or isn't? He's in year 3 now. He's got
might
one
be
more.
in year 3 now. Yeah, I think what might happen here is you might be right. You might see Clutterbuck get the 2 years to match Matt Martin's deal once both their deals expire. I'm thinking the train of thought here is that they can plug in 2 other pieces around Zizikas and hopefully get similar results with him still at the center.
And they might, and that's where I think so. Martin has this year and 2 more years. So after this season, I think Clutter gets a 2 by 1.5, 2 by 175.
That's probably spot on.
And then try to figure it out from there as to who that might be. Johnson's deal, this is the last year of his contract, his $1 million season.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. He may find himself not in the NHL this season at all. Not even
Yeah,
off the
no, I
roster.
agree. You know, and we'll talk about this maybe a little later. I don't know if we put it in our notes, but you know, with the possibility that there's a trade brewing, you might see, you know, Komarov, Hickey, and Johnston not even on the roster. So we'll find out what happens. Not too sure how it's going to shake out. Ton of unknown. But you know, some of those depth pieces are possibly going to be gone. You know, it's starting to trickle out that Travis Zajac's likely to come back. So what's his role now? So there's so many depth pieces that it's like, well, how are you fitting all of these players? You know,
and I think that's where it's like either you're retaining that, and that's, you know, going back to Lou's strategy. It's either you're going to retain or you're going to take. You know, there's $2 to $3 million you're taking, whether that's keeping a part of Tarasenko or whatever. Again, and I can't even think of an off the board player right now. Frankly, I don't think it's on offense. If it's not Tarasenko, I think it's no one, and I think it's a defender that they're trading for. We'll get there, but they're I think that's where it's like either 2 or 3 million. We're either trading you a good roster player or a prospect, but you're also getting a Komarov or a Hickey, and I have comments on Hickey we'll talk about later too. So it's an interesting situation.
Yeah, very fluid. We'll see how it shakes out. You know, something that we're gonna know sooner rather than later, though, is Adam Pelech's deal. So players who were going to file for arbitration had to do so by now. Pelech was the only one who did. I guess you could read the tea leaves on Ilya Sorokin and Antti Pavillier. Seems like I guess that contract or those contracts have worked out. So that's encouraging. But Pelech is the only one to file for arbitration. So I had heard that it's possible that he's asking for somewhere near the $7 million AAV mark. I don't know if he's going to get it. And I also wonder how that conversation goes. I've never obviously been in the room for those conversations, but is it strictly off of production, like points, goals, assists, like, or is it, you know, well, you get a ton of media credit as one of the best defensemen? You know, what's the measure of one of the best defensive defensemen? You know, because that's essentially what he is. And the other day, he was on the board on NHL Network to possibly be on Team Canada's 2022 Olympic roster. So it's like, how do you measure a defensive defenseman, which is likely what they're going to do for him?
Pay the man.
Yeah, no, I agree. Pay him.
And he has to start somewhere. If he thinks he's going to get 5.75, if his agent's telling him, look, this is the number we're not going to go below. We think he's going to say 5.5, and we can go tack on a little. We'll start at 7, but we know where we're going to actually try to end up.
Yeah,
that's fine. You go to arbitration. Yeah. You work it out. The player gets closer to what they want. Usually, in most cases, from what I understand, anyway, it's fine. It's not going to be much more than Pulock.
I don't think it will be either, and it's not going to be one of those things where
it could be 6. It could be a little under 6. That's fine. Pay the man.
Yeah, I agree.
It's especially like, and Pulock has one, so you're setting a little bit of a precedent, right? Because they're a pairing, and they only work with one another. So you're going to
Pulock is due for a contract next season.
And Pulock is due for a deal. So you're setting a precedent to say, look, you're going to, this is what our max is going to be for this pairing.
Yeah.
It's 12 million. It's like a tandem in goal. Under $10 million. You got to keep that number under 10. Some teams are really, really bad at that. For the Islanders, I think keeping that pairing maybe under 12 would be ideal. So they can get, or under 14, that's a lot.
No,
but
right.
They are an elite pair, but they really complement one another. So I think at the end of the day, if it's 6.25 for each of them, or within 250, whatever, one way or another, that I wouldn't be surprised if that's where
that's definitely a win for Lamoriello in his book. I think this isn't a situation where it's like, if the arbitration hearing goes more in favor of Pelech than it does Lamoriello, he's going to turn around and be like, okay, I got to move you. That's not going to happen. He's going to get paid regardless, whether it's what Lamoriello wants or what Pelech wants. If Pelech wins, Lamoriello's going to be like, okay, here's your money.
They want to be on the. I think too. There are a lot of save for Andy Green, and now that Leddy's gone, this defensive core is under 30 for the time being, and they're going to be around for a while. They understand this team. It's the only team they've been on. They've grown up from the Bridgeport, not Islanders at the time, Sound Tigers, and up through this organization. They know how close it is. This team, all the young players under 30 have been here for kind of a while. Even the Baileys and the Cizikas, Martin, even Clutterbuck at this point. A lot of this team has been here for a very long time.
Right.
And even the new players, Pajot, only knows this team as an Eastern Conference finalist.
Right.
And not only an Eastern Conference finalist, but within a few goals.
Isn't that crazy? I think so. Aren't these great times to be living in?
Amazing. So this team is they have high expectations, and I think for themselves, right? They know what they're a part of. They've all kind of bought into that. It'll get done. I don't know that I'm. I mean, think about.
Oh no, not worried at all.
Heard the fact that Pelech even went to arbitration. I think you're talking about $500,000 difference. Like
probably.
I really don't think it's more than that. And I know absolutely nothing.
No, I'm totally agree.
Salary expert, but I have to believe they're having this conversation. They're probably already having it with Pulock.
Yeah.
To make sure that it can all work together. So we'll see. I mean, Boychuk comes completely off the book after the season, so that saves him at least a headache.
Yeah.
Depending on who they bring in by trade. Maybe Sebastian Aho surprises everybody. He's in the last year of his deal.
Mm-hmm.
So he's either not coming back or he's coming back.
You know what's interesting about Aho's deal? Sorry to cut you off. What's super interesting about his deal, though, is that it now transitions to a one-way deal, whereas last season it was two.
A part of me is thinking that he surprises and gets a little more time.
Would be nice,
depending on how Dobson does under heavier minutes, depending on who they can trade for, if that's even a thing.
It would be nice, but by no means do I think that they're comfortable saying, Aho is going to be our second or third pairing defenseman. I don't think that that's the comfortability level there yet. I
mean, we're talking about defensemen, and we didn't really put internal defensemen on this list, so I think this is probably a decent time to bring it up. I was thinking about this today as we were kind of polishing the show notes, and I'm so disappointed that Hickey just isn't their guy. And I don't think it has anything I think it's just he's not the right guy. Yeah. I think Aho's in the same boat. I just don't think those are the guys that they want to trust. And they're just not going to get a shot, and that sucks. Because I think if this was 2 years removed from any of this and Hickey doesn't get hurt, he was there. And that's what drives me fucking crazy. Hickey was in that first season with Trotz. He was there and got hurt. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, man, imagine how much less this hurts. And maybe you don't bring in Andy Green last year, and it's Hickey Dobson on that third pair. You lose Leddy this year. You switch some things around. You put Hickey with Mayfield, even if that's your third pair, and then you're finding a partner for Dobson instead.
Yeah.
How different all of that looks.
Yeah.
And feels. Man, it drives me crazy because I love Hickey. He played such an important role. Now it was 5-6 years ago already.
Yeah.
It is crazy during that 15-16 playoff run, the 16 run where they beat the Panthers. Oh God, it drives me insane. I want him on this. I want him to work. And last season, who got injured last year? Where Aho and Hickey got a moment.
Dobson was out for COVID complications.
Right. So both of those guys got chances, and I'm like, damn it! Like, just be good. Don't just be fucking.
And they were. It was mostly Hickey.
And even Aho scored 2. I think he scored 2 goals.
Yeah, I think it was on his first shift, on his first shot.
Right? And so I'm sitting there thinking like, oh man, just be hard to take out of the lineup. And you know what? They were hard to take out of the lineup, and they still fucking did it. And that's it. They're done. They are not they're not part of this defensive core on a regular basis. I hope I'm wrong, because I would love that. I would love for Hickey to just have this comeback and be this player. But it also kills me with Aho too, because that was the only other prospect like close, like homegrown guy that they drafted and was waiting for their moment and was, talked about a whole lot. And to just be like, all right, it's just Dobson and Wallstrom now, and we got to build around. And we're talking about Tarasenko, and I'm like, yeah, but like the draft and nothing. There's nothing in Bridgeport. Even Bellows, I'm like, what is happening? Like we need some youth on the cusp. Like there was a time a few years ago when it was, these guys are really going to push. They're really going to push. It's a whole bunch of guys. It was like 5 players, defense, offense. Oh, they're really going to push for these spots. And it didn't work out. And it was, the organization was a little, let's call it influx. And now I'm like, who are the players pushing for spots? Nobody is ready. Not one player is ready to make that run. Aho has to really surprise. Hickey has to come back a monster.
Yeah.
And I think by that point it's too late.
I just think that there's something. There's just something about Hickey and Aho when they step on the ice that just Barry Trotz doesn't see it. Whatever it is, he doesn't see it. And I think that's the issue. Yeah.
By the time they're going to do it in training camp, they're going to have brought in somebody already.
Yeah. Quick note on Bridgeport. We didn't have it in our notes today. They announced Rick Kowalski was hired as an assistant coach for Bridgeport. And they also released Matt Karkner and Eric Bugnicki as assistant coaches. Brent Thompson will remain the head coach.
One of them was the AHL coach of the year.
I don't know.
I saved something thinking we were going to talk about this.
You look for that, and I will just also continue with six forwards came to terms on an agreement for 2021-22. With Bridgeport, Jeff Kubiak, Eric Brown, Felix Bobeau, Cole Koski, Kyle McLean, and Chris Terry. Quick note on Bridgeport.
Yeah, Rick Kowalski, former AHL Coach of the Year, joins the Islanders.
Yes, he's now the assistant coach to Thompson. So looks like maybe some good additions, some necessary subtractions from Bridgeport. Not maybe the best grooming system for forwards. Pretty good defensive core coming up from them, but for forwards, not the best grooming system.
And I'll say this: there is still Robin Salo, there's Bolduc, Bodie Wild. So there's some defense there that can come up through the system. Bellows could surprise us at some point. I don't think he's on the NHL roster, but he can stick around. If someone goes down, he may still have his chance to come up.
We'll see.
Simon Holmstrom is still kicking around down there, but he's still young.
Yeah. I think he's only going to be 20.
Yes. So there's a chance. I mean, guys like Panic and Johnson still on the roster, and maybe Zajac coming back. I do not understand how all this works. I have to admit.
There's going to be a lot of movement, a lot of traction, between transactions and then AHL roster and NHL roster. But part of that might be, and you asked the question, when push comes to shove, who do you prefer? Who do you want on the move? Not that you want anybody on the move, but who do you prefer to be on the move between Bailey or Pavillier?
So I wrote an article, the Hockey Writers, and I kind of responded to Staple. Kind of brought up a few points about who goes. And I think at this point it depends on who they're being traded for and what the other team wants. It seems like it's one of the two of them. It just depends on who the trade partner is and what the return is.
Yeah.
Either a forward has to go if Tarasenko's coming in, right? So you're going to get on, and it was, I think it's very interesting that Bailey, who was a lightning rod for criticism forever, is now like, oh, well, he's an all-time Islanders leader in games played. So he's an Islander forever. And it's like, man, a couple years ago, that was not the tune anybody was saying, right? Like, how are we all of a sudden just like, oh no, but Bailey forever? And I'm no huge Bailey fan.
Yeah.
Trotz likes him, and I'm like, all right, well, what do I know? Right? They're successful. He's playing a role in some capacity. I would prefer Bailey because of the cap hit, and I just like Beauvillier on the roster. I think even if he gets moved down the roster for whatever reason,
Yeah.
just because I like I said, we've joked about this before. They have 3 second lines. With Tarasenko, I think there's a true first line for the first time maybe ever. So maybe you have 2 second lines, and they're pretty interchangeable, and that's fine. I think he gets his time. So I'd pick Beauvillier just kind of like long term. He's younger. It's hard to see Bailey go, but long
Yeah.
term and even short term success, I'd imagine that's going to happen with Beauvillier.
I'm going to steal a line from Jeff Marek because he said it, and I couldn't agree more. We live in really bold times for the NHL right now. There's a flat cap, and it's harder to manage this flat cap era because, there was a time where every year you expected the cap to go up a little bit. I think right before COVID hit the world, it was expected to go a lot in the north direction. I think it was going to go up like $6 million for each team. So we live in bold times, and that basically means that Beauvillier or Bailey in that conversation, yeah, Bailey is definitely an asset to other teams and a candidate to be moved. You don't want to see it happen because like you said, games played leader and leader in the locker room, career Islander. But it's a tough pill to swallow, and it's just the truth right now. We live in bold times. You see these things; they might have to happen. Seattle just signed Alex Wenberg to a $4.5 million average annual value contract, and it's like that's a bold move. They're trying to lock up a guy. They overpay him a little bit, and these kinds of things are going to happen. So, if you're having to make this choice, even though Beauvillier is inconsistent, he's 6 years younger. He's Barzal's best friend, and you want to keep him moving forward. It's just better for the roster.
Bailey was also left unprotected. Let's not forget that conversation may have already happened between team and player. And if it didn't, it indirectly because it was all released. But it seems like that writing is already on the wall. Like even Beauvillier without a contract was protected. I think it's been Bailey. I think it's just a matter of which team and what's the return. Like I wonder if it's, again, I think he's on the move, whether it's in exchange for Tarasenko or because of a Tarasenko trade, which may include Bellows and something or whatever. They have to open up a roster spot, so we've got to go or get traded for a defenseman.
Yeah,
it's one or the other. He's got to go because Tarasenko's coming in. I think that's where some of the stalling is coming from. The Tarasenko trade is holding up. I'll say this: either the defenseman trade or the Tarasenko trade is holding everything up. I'm of the mind that we do keep hearing Tarasenko is a thing for the Islanders.
Yeah, we do.
And I want that to be true. So I'll start there. However, as a lot of people have pointed out, and I should have saved the tweet. I saw that, adding a full season of Palmieri, bringing back Lee and Parise is X amount of goals more than having Zajac and all these other guys on the roster, Komarov on the first line, all this other shit.
Right.
The forward group may be done. We may have what we have. It's an upgrade. We talked about that last episode. It's an upgrade from last season. You cannot argue with that, right? It's not the upgrade. It's not Tarasenko upgrade. I cannot argue with you there at all.
Right.
I think the move is forward defenseman. I think that's where this is hinging on. And that's where it's like, it's Bailey, it's this number, it's who's there's a couple of things. I don't think it means that Tarasenko is not happening at all.
Yeah.
But I think I have to think that the harder thing is the defensive thing, and I think that's the priority.
Right.
And
I would agree with you.
That might be what's holding up the Tarasenko deal, not the other way around. It's complete speculation and editorializing. But I have to. That's going to get harder to do the closer you get to training camp, unless he thinks something's going to fall through the waiver wire into his lap.
Right. And the other thing too is, let's just say they do bring in Tarasenko. I'm not saying I do or I don't want this to happen. Let's just say they do bring in Tarasenko, though. That keeps Oliver Wahlstrom down on the third line for sure. Now, Kyle Palmieri coming in, everyone thinks that he's going to be the first line right winger to fill that spot. However, we also thought that when he came in the first time. So it's very possible that Oliver Wahlstrom could take that first line spot at 21 years old. His shot is elite. That release is ridiculous. And if he could win that spot, don't you want it to be him? You save the money, you get the same production.
I'll say this.
Don't we want that to be him?
He doesn't get it right away. He gets there. He gets there this season.
But if Tarasenko's on the roster?
No, if Tarasenko's out there. If Tarasenko's there, absolutely not. But save for that caveat, which again, I am of the mind their focus at the very moment is moving Bailey / maybe Beauvillier for defender. Then now that the roster spot is open for Tarasenko and they know what they're paying for defensemen, they know what they're dealing with, at least internally, not outside of that, what they can do and make St. Louis retain, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where it's going. So if it's not Tarasenko, yes, I think eventually this season Wahlstrom's getting his shot unless Palmieri just kills it.
True.
I think Wahlstrom gets and you have to believe the three of them are going to work well together. You saw the connection between Barzal and Palmieri in very limited time. They may need somebody like Lee on that line to really solidify it. I think they're going to get their shot first. And that's totally fair.
I wonder how it will work out with Lee and Palmieri, only because I don't see too much of a difference in their games, albeit I think Lee's much better at it, but they're both grindy net front presences, hard on the boards. I don't know if
Palmieri will shoot more. He's more of that.
I guess he could do both.
He can be a little, yeah. He can drive the net. He can drive on the rush. I'm not saying he's a perimeter player. He's not like that kind of sniper.
No.
But he can find the holes. Like we've kind of seen him do that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the dynamic works well. I think he'll do a better job at it maybe than Eberle. As upsetting as that is to see him kind of not there, I think Palmieri can be a little bit more consistent.
Yeah.
And the three of them, and to Eberle's credit, he didn't have Lee there. He had Komarov and Barzal.
Also true.
So you got to give him, this last season and into the playoffs, you give him a little leeway on that.
Yeah, and maybe he was trying to be what Lee was while he was out, so he can maybe play a little bit more of his own game with Lee back, not having to fill the Lee-sized hole that was left.
Whatever the deal was, however that was playing out, I think it's important that he, that we put that caveat there. I think
right.
Palmieri was allowed to play his game on the third line with Peugeot. Barzal is obviously an elite talent. Lee does a really good job in front of the net, and I think the three of them will mesh well. And if they don't, they do have the Wahlstrom there, and they know Palmieri works well on that third line. And I don't know if Parise and Palmieri ever play on the Devils together, but I don't see that line being bad either, regardless.
No, not at all.
So I like I said, even the lineup, knowing what we know, without specifics on contracts on who's in the forward group for the Islanders, I think that's fine.
Yeah. Let's talk about the defenseman that you mentioned earlier. That issue is that, Nick Leddy is gone and they need to fill that hole. You asked if Ryan Murray would be something that the Islanders look at, someone that the Islanders look at. Unfortunately, the Avs scooped him up first. So he's gone, and on a cheap deal, I think it was won by $2 million.
I saw that. I was like, he's not ideal. So I
No,
wrote that article for the hockey writers, and Staple had mentioned him. So I was curating. Here's what we know. Here's what's being said.
right.
And I changed it at the last, like the 11th hour as it was being scheduled.
Yeah,
because
he was scooped up.
He was scooped up. It's interesting. Well, continue your framing here.
I was just going to say that some people are speculating that it took him as long as it did because maybe the Islanders actually had an offer on the table for him.
Well, yeah, I think the theories bouncing around now are anyone you haven't heard about that's a UFA is having some kind of conversation with the Islanders. Doesn't mean they're not also having conversations with the other teams, with any other team.
Right.
But the theory is that they're having a conversation with the Islanders. So it's no coincidence. There's nothing. But there wasn't a peep out of that even from the Avs up until it happened, as far as I know. Don't follow the Avs all that closely. So what do I know? I do follow the team on Twitter because I enjoy their social media, and I had a good time in Denver at those games. But either way, didn't see that coming necessarily. So there's been a lot of speculation on anyone you're not really hearing about. Maybe they have some connection with the Islanders.
Yeah. Now, in other articles in speculation by Arthur Staple, he had talked about the fact that maybe Lamoriello has higher ambitions and he could go for maybe a Mattias Ekholm out of Nashville or a Hampus Lindholm or even Cam Fowler out of Anaheim. Those would be tough to come by, I think, because I think the conversation starts with Beauvillier.
And that's where he changes his tone in the article. If they are going to aim higher, I'm cool with that. I don't like my initial reaction is going to be, man, Beauvillier. And I'm going to go Ekholm on the second pairing. And the lineup is what it is with adding Palmieri and Parise. Bailey's still there.
Trott's connection with Ekholm.
Wahlstrom gets elevated minutes there. Maybe they're still able to bring in Tarasenko. I don't think that has anything. Look, if you're gonna move Beauvillier, you bring in Tarasenko. You figure that shit out.
Yeah,
right.
But now, how many assets do you have to bring in Tarasenko and Ekholm or Lindholm or Fowler?
That might be a hockey. I mean, to me, that's a low level. I mean, Beauvillier's young, and he's an RFA. It might be a sign and trade. That might be a hockey trade. That might be a 1-for-1.
Now, I do want to just address the meaning of a hockey trade because somebody did ask me via Twitter when I commented on a possible hockey trade happening, transpiring. And really what a hockey trade means is two GMs connecting on a deal, filling a need for a need. So if one team needs a forward and one team needs a defenseman, and each team has excess in that area, they swap, essentially, for a fair price.
That's more or less. And so I think that might be close one way or another in that regard. And that's okay to me.
Yeah.
I don't love it. Maybe in a few years I really hate it because Beauvillier pops in Nashville. So you get Ekholm, you move Beauvillier, you bring in Tarasenko, you keep Bailey. That's still a good lineup.
I would agree.
If you're
definitely agree.
I think maybe it comes down to this, and we're not talking about defense still, but as we try to move on, but it might be, if Tarasenko comes on board, Beauvillier might be gone for a defender. If there's a different trade going on for a defender, and you don't bring in Tarasenko, Beauvillier stays. It's one or the other. I don't think they both exist on the same roster. You're looking now. It's not either or, but they don't exist together in an Islander uniform. My opinion.
Now, how do you feel about and this is another Lamoriello connection, the suggestion of maybe try to go for Damon Severson from the Devils.
I think that's a lower cost, and that might be safer. He's young, but that he can put up points. He put up 40 points in 82 games a few years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't think that costs Beauvillier though, and I think that's fine. You're filling that hole. I don't know what you're trading. If that's Bellows and a something whatever for Severson, forward group stays the same. I think you roll with it and go from there.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that.
You make your deadline acquisition if you need it.
I wouldn't mind that.
You try to make some kind of splash. I
honestly I don't know if it would cost Beauvillier. It might.
If you're the forward group in New Jersey is the whole roster is so young.
It is very young.
So maybe if they're into that idea, do you take Bellows and a something, and then you're moving Bailey and a something for Tarasenko, and you're having them keep you're keeping a flat cap there, and you're having them keep, I don't know, $2.5 million would be kind of a lot. And it's only for 2 years, Tarasenko. Let's keep that in mind. I know we questioned that last episode.
It's 2 years.
I don't know. I'm still of the mind that Beauvillier and Tarasenko can't exist on the roster. It's probably possible. I just don't think they coexist in another uniform unless somehow they make a Bellows trade for Severson and some sweetener, and it's Bailey and something else. I don't know what, because they don't have that much for Tarasenko.
Yeah.
And that's how that exists together if Beauvillier is on a decent deal. I mean, if that happens, they are fucking going for it.
Yeah.
They're fully going for it, which is cool as hell. I haven't seen that in my lifetime. I mean, the closest thing to that is like Ryan Smith with Alexa Yashin. And like Chris Osgood, right? Like that kind of stuff. That's the most going for it we've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little credit with Zajac and Palmieri as well, but it was Lee not in the lineup. You're kind of filling a hole instead of adding and going above and beyond. So take that for what it's worth. Yeah. Stevenson would be a cool one.
Yeah, I think
would be cool.
I think what the problem with Severson, if he would be a left defenseman, his handedness would be the opposite. So it would be tough to slot him there, but he'd probably be able to adjust and play that position anyway. I think he is a good top four option.
That might be a reason enough for the Islanders not to go there.
It just really depends what the cost might be. Everything else seems to be, you look at Severson and you're like, that looks good. 40 points from the blue line. He's going into his age 27 season, kind of aligns with the core. It looks good.
He's expensive. He's not cheap.
What's his contract?
He's 5.5.
He makes 5.5. I mean, so now
5.05.
And how many years are left on that deal?
This year and next.
So essentially,
and the cap is 4.1, 4.16.
So you essentially traded Leddy to bring in Severson at the same
$1 million.
Oh, okay. So you're saving $1 million.
Or what was Leddy, 5.5? So
he was, yeah.
$1 million, $1.5 million. Yeah, you're saving $1.5 million to save a couple $100,000.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what he costs to, if that's worth it, and then it, further depends what he brings to the table.
I don't think if they have the right hand, they have the right side all set.
Yeah,
they have the righties all taken care of.
Yeah, so maybe Severson isn't an option, and that was just pure speculation on Staples' part. So
to me, I think Trotz has his setups. He likes certain things, although he overloads righties on the first power play unit. I'll never friggin' understand. It seems like it's very predictable that way, but I'm not a future Hall of Fame coach, so whatever.
I thought you got some nominations.
No, negative nominations. I was part of like people who don't matter crowd. I was like lumped into that.
Let's talk about Travis Zajac. It's assumed that he's already under contract. He will possibly or most likely be coming back for next season with the Islanders. What's his role going to be?
I don't know how he fits. Forget about what his role is. I don't know. Extra guy? I mean, he'd be above Johnston, I have to imagine.
Yeah, he'll be a 13th forward in my mind. Again, I think because of the fact that he's coming back, there's a plan in place to move a Komarov, to possibly move a Johnston, to move a Hickey. Too many bodies at this point, right? We kind of have an
for
idea.
The contract number. Yeah,
we have an idea of who's coming back, and maybe he comes back on a league minimum contract, and that's great, right? You move out Komarov, and you gain or keep a Zajac. You know, you're saving almost $250 million every for the next year. So, maybe that goes towards something. Maybe Johnston moves out because, again, like I said, you can't keep all these bodies. So where is everybody going? You have to think, and again, because of the radio silence, there's something's up. Something's definitely up.
Yeah, none of
all these guys.
You're right. You can't have rumored Zajac coming back if Komarov's not going somewhere. But we're at this
not
point,
even just Komarov. It's got to be, Komarov might be gone, Hickey might be gone, Sebastian Aho might be gone. Who knows at this point what's going to happen?
They do need that insurance. I don't think he's going that far. Aho might
maybe,
be, but I understand your point. Yeah, I know it could be. It could be any of that.
Because now here's the other interesting thing. Not only is it assumed that Zajac is under contract, it's also assumed that Michael Dalcol is coming back on a 2-way deal, and further, Colshev is going to be coming back. It's assumed that they're both under contract already, and the thing about Colshev is much like the Jan Kovacs of the Islanders history. If he's not in the NHL next season, he's not going to the AHL, and he's going to go back to the K. So where are all of these bodies fitting?
I have no idea. It might be part of this larger contingency plan that Lou has.
There's no taxi squad. Let's not forget. That's done.
Yeah, I was also thinking about that in a quick sidebar, that we're going to have a full 82-game season, and we are going to need a vacation.
Oh yeah,
I think
because right now is supposed to be our vacation, but because of the condensed off season and the amount of, I guess, quote unquote news, we're full force this summer. So
yeah, we may just roll right into it.
We're not
like Christmas break or something like that, or something. Jeez, that's nice and warm outside today. Finally, well, here in Syracuse, but. Yeah, I think to just go back for one moment, I don't think we talked about Lindholm. For 1 year at 5.2, that might be cheap to get if Anaheim is willing to let go of him.
I mean, they're probably looking to rebuild.
He's in the same range. He had a bad year last year. I don't know, he probably got injured or something.
Yeah, he did.
Only played 18 games. That might be enough for the Islanders not to look at him. But for 1 year, it might be cheap enough. Again, if you're going to keep Beauvillier on the roster and have Tarasenko there, that's a way that you do it. You bring in somebody that's going to be reliable enough that fits into your style. And he is a lefty, so that works as far as I'm concerned. With how they've very clearly set up their defensive pairs, it's like not a secret. That might be a really good Band-Aid. Doesn't solve their problem long term, but we can get there.
And this is a possible quote unquote hockey trade for both sides. And what I mean by that is, I think if they want to, maybe get some younger assets, Kiefer Bellows should definitely interest them, and that might be his best opportunity to succeed in the NHL. He'll get minutes in Anaheim. They're looking to revamp.
Yeah, he's got to be hoping he's part of one of these trades at this point because
I
he
think
sees
so.
the writing on the. If he's his agent or whomever, somebody's telling him, dude, you are just like if Zajac come back, there's Ross Johnson.
Yeah.
You barely got your shot.
I think this is a different conversation if Oliver Wahlstrom didn't flourish, but he did. And
it doesn't make me mad. Like I want to see. I guess on a different Islanders team and a different time period, Bellows would have already had his shot quite a bit. We would have seen a little bit more.
Yeah.
But maybe they wouldn't have handled it very well. Who knows if they're handling this very well? But this doesn't scream Niederreiter to me. I'll say that.
No.
But it's still disappointing to be like another one.
Yeah, because the thing is
third. Was he a first round pick?
He was. He's 19th overall.
So between this is the fourth first round pick in a decade.
Yeah.
That just now and can't throw Tavares in there. That's just no longer on the team. It's the fifth first round pick in a decade.
The 2014 draft is looking horrible right now. JHS is gone. MDC probably coming back, but didn't really work out.
That's half of your first round picks in the last decade.
Yeah.
Or as far as 2009, but give or take, that's tough.
Yeah, very tough.
And Grant, they didn't have one this year. So, and did they last year? Did they trade that one?
They traded it for Peugeot.
So, in the last 11 years, they've had 8 picks. Let's call it 9. Give them the benefit of the doubt here. 5 of them didn't work or are no longer here.
Well, you can count.
Sucks.
You can count on one hand. Let's see. It's Barzal, Beauvillier, Nelson, Pulock.
Nelson was a first round pick.
Yeah, he was 30th overall. Pulock. Yeah. And is that it for the first round picks that have worked out for the New York Islanders?
All right, that's a pretty. 50%.
Noah Dobson, okay, and Oliver Wahlstrom, 6.
Okay, that's like 50%. I don't know. Like maybe that's good. I don't know. I feel like it should be better than that, but and I guess Tavares did work out. They just handled him like shit. I guess Niederreiter did work out. They just handled him like shit.
Ryan Strome worked out. They handled him like shit.
This team. What the?
Granted,
we're getting aggravated about 2 GMs ago and some other bullshit. We have no control. Doesn't matter. It's inconsequential at this point.
Right. Granted, Ryan Strome worked out only when he got to the Rangers. He didn't work out for the Oilers in the 1-for-1 trade with Eberle. They moved him after failed success in Edmonton, but he's worked out for New York on Broadway. So he didn't go from one well-managed team to another when leaving Long Island to go to Edmonton, but he did go to a well-managed team in the Rangers when he got there. So,
well, now it's under different management.
Well, now it's different, yeah. But when he got there, it was going well, semi-well. I'll say semi-well.
I give them credit for the Rangers kind of saying this is what we're going to do, and they're trying to get there. I love that the Islanders kind of scared them in, and between Washington and the Islanders, having them bring in Reeves, I think it's great. Martin is going to have his.
Did you see the Elliot Friedman quote I tweeted about that?
I heard it on the show.
Okay.
That was part of it. He thinks the Islanders are a bigger role than Tom Wilson in bringing in Reeves. I think it's great. It's good for the Islanders' ego.
Yeah.
It doesn't help them because Reeves is a couple hands full, and Martin
he's going to be a problem.
Busy.
Yeah.
He'll be his $1.5 million to people who thought that was a bad deal. I don't want Cizikas fighting him. He's a big. I don't.
He's the toughest guy in the league.
The second that happened, Martin just was like, "Oh shit!" He just hit the gym. He got a boxing coach immediately. He signed. That should be the signing number looking for and digging. Some wannabe reporter can find that out. Go find some boxing gym on Long Island. Guaranteed Martin is there. Just training because Jesus Christ is between him and Ryan Reeves. That's going to be, If you think the Islanders are tough and the rest of the league, they definitely have something to prove this year. Seeing a lot of him.
Yeah, definitely gonna be tougher. But real quick, circling back to Islander prospects, let's talk about Atu Ratu. That's how it's pronounced, by the way. Atu Ratu, not Rati, but Ratu. He leads the World Junior Summer Showcase in scoring
by a healthy margin.
And again, we spoke about this last week. Once thought of as the first overall pick, then a top 5, then a top 10, and yeah, he dropped. The past 2 seasons were what they were. It was hard for everybody. It it messed with people's mentally. It messed with people's mental health, I if you will. And the talent is clearly still there. He got drafted. Maybe that was a confidence boost because, again, the same day he scores 4 goals. I don't know, man. This second round pick in Atu Ratu is starting to look, and I won't put the cart before the horse, but for right now, it's looking real good. They might have a diamond in the rough here. Don't forget, Nikita Kucherov was a second round pick. I'm not saying that he's a Nikita Kucherov, but you do find these diamonds in the rough.
I don't know that it's a diamond in the rough so much as he kind of just like fell down the rankings. It could have just been that it was hard to see him play if he was playing in Europe somewhere. He's Swedish. Am I making that up?
Finnish.
May have just been hard to kind of see that. Islanders had an opportunity, or they learned they have some kind of connection. They have a scout there, whatever the deal is. So I don't know if it's a diamond in the rough. Wasn't he projected much, much higher and fell down? It could have just been lack of access to him. Because clearly, he's good. You got to see him kind of work his way up. And I think we're allowed to be excited about this stuff. I don't think it's cart before the horse. I think we're allowed to be like, wow, this wound up being, he's only able to succeed to the level of which he's the competition that he's playing against. So this is just what he's able to play against at the moment, and he's succeeding. So we'll see. We'll worry about the next level when he gets there. For now, he's succeeding, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
I think that's where cart before the horse. We're like, well, what about the next thing? Relax. He'll get there. Don't worry about the next thing. He's still in this tournament. He doesn't control where he gets to play for that,
right.
To a certain degree. He can't choose to play for Bridgeport. It's just not how that works. So let's just be excited. Let's not worry about, for the first time ever, there's a little bit of a logjam. We don't need to rush him in there. We don't need him to come in and be some savior. Let him develop. Hopefully they don't screw this one up too.
Well, he has to play another year in Finland. Yeah, contractually.
And I think that's fine. Yeah, some of these players are choosing to not even play juniors or something like that. And they're choosing to play in Europe, and it's working. Awesome. Matthews did it. There's a couple other players. I think it's fine. So let him do his thing. He'll get over. There's a little bit of a logjam. They're going to need, Barzell's not going to be young forever. Bouillet's not going to be young forever. Even Wahlstrom. Everyone's going to get a little bit older. They'll be able to kind of work him in when it's ready. I'll just be happy about it right now. Let's not worry about who he's playing against and whatever.
Yeah, and a few other quick anecdotes on the World Junior Showcase. Tristan Lennox is with Team Canada. I don't think he's starting there. I believe the goaltender Kosa that Detroit drafted is the starter there, but he's on the World Junior team. Good to see. As is William Defoe or Dufour playing top 6 minutes for Team Canada. That's great to see. Cameron Berg is on Team USA. I think that rounds it out for Islanders prospects in the World Junior Showcase, but it's good to see that the Islanders are represented on a national level. So, they got some young kids coming through the pipeline that, maybe the Islander pipeline's a little better than people think. It's been pretty much written off as one of the lesser prospect pools, but, Salo, Bolduc, Wild, Dufour, Ratty, Lennox, like these are some names to be excited about. Dufour was on a tear this year in the CHL. He might have led them in scoring. Scored a lot of goals. He's a 5th-round pick. So the prospect pool is looking a little bit better than you might have anticipated a year ago.
Yeah, they can. I mean, they can find those. Some of those are going to be diamonds in the rough, as you alluded to. Some of them are just going to take a little more time.
Yeah,
But it's good to see that they have some prospects kind of bubbling, even below or outside of kind of North America.
yeah. Colin Adams is another name too. Just keep an eye on him. He might be with Bridgeport this season. I'm not sure if he's going back to the NCAA, but another name to keep an eye on. Maybe get a little excited about. He's good as well. Any closing thoughts, John?
Not a whole lot. I'm sure some of you have read about the Evander Kane situation. It's upsetting. You kind of want to see how things play out. I don't love that the NHL decided that this was the thing they were putting their foot down on, and not a couple of the other situations that were occurring, namely Chicago. That it kind of took some time and all this, and this was within 24 hours, and it was a social media post. Um, Not to say that that's not valid and that we can't believe people and all of that, but this it was very strange to see that kind of them put their foot down on this as quickly as they did and really drag their feet on a number of other, the Canadians thing, um, the Chicago. It's interesting and disappointing and all that. I did my rant last week on a bunch of stuff, so I won't bore everyone with that. But yeah, it's and it sucks. Sounds like he's going through a divorce too, and so nobody's happy there. There's a kid involved. He's trying to defend himself. She's obviously got his now soon to be ex-wife or whatever the case is. Sounds like she has more than enough one way or another that she could be unhappy about. Doesn't sound like he's a star figure. Um, so it sucks all around. I don't like that this kind of attention gets brought to the NHL, and then the NHL itself just handles it poorly. Um, yeah, this is all it's funny because of the betting sponsors and all of that. That's why this got handled the way that it did as quickly as it did. Not because they actually care about it, but because this is a huge deal that the NHL just made and is working towards gambling and helping the kind of buoy the league as far as revenue is concerned. Whereas the other stuff doesn't have those implications. So, this whatever his name is in Montreal, he doesn't say anything until sponsors start saying that they don't like the move of drafting the kid. So it's
Yeah,
you can follow the money on all this. I hate it. It for now is what we have to work with, but it's just crappy to actually see it in practice, like unabated, unapologetic. They don't care. It's obvious. Yeah, not a whole lot else to say, but just
one
a
thing I
shitty
found
situation.
interesting about this situation is that one person who stepped forward in, I don't want to say in Evander Kane's defense, but what he basically said was Robin Lehner quote tweeted one of the tweets accusing Evander Kane, and he said, we're and I'm paraphrasing here. We're quick to jump the gun. What happened to innocent until proven guilty? It shouldn't be the opposite. Some back and forth on that between fans and media alike. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's fine in this particular case to wait for things to play out. Um, I think with different allegations, you kind of weigh social media posts or different things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
There's obviously it's obviously the two of them, the Evander Kane and his soon to be ex-wife are not happy. Doesn't sound like I said, Evander Kane's being a model husband, or whatever the case is. Like, so there's obviously like animosity between the two of them, and you sometimes you just say things with a little bit of hyperbole, just to, for whatever reason. But I don't know with Robin. He's been controversial before, one way or another. I think it's good to come to defense to a degree. I don't know that this is the time to do it in the way that he did
Interesting
it.
too, because he's a rival of Evander Kane's, albeit with the rivalry that him and Ryan Reeves have when Reeves was with the Golden Knights.
Yeah, I don't. There's so much. There's so many other things that Robin Lehner can come out about that are so much more important than this.
That's true.
And it's just interesting that this is what he was like. You know what? Today is I'm going to, of all the shitty things, I'm going to discuss this thing.
I wonder if he just
which
feels.
Is like, Jesus Christ. Like, I just don't
I wonder
understand.
if he just feels at this point like a voice, maybe a voice of reason that he's trying. Not that I'm saying he is, but maybe just trying to be, maybe he's just figured out that he gets a lot of attention on the off ice issues. So maybe he feels like he has a voice.
And, this is a good plug for
We're all a little crazy.
We're all a little crazy. I was going to say something else that just didn't feel right. So I apologize for the pause. So we're all a little crazy. I give them a lot of credit on this network. We love those guys. They're doing a really good job. Controversial in their own right and kind of all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that you can just say that every single time. I have very conflicting feelings about a lot of that stuff. So if Evander Kane's clearly going through something, it gives a different perspective. There's a different lens that you can look through it. It doesn't mean that that's an excuse for everything, but it means that you have to at least take that into some kind of consideration. But yeah, I don't like that. I'm more concerned with Lehner coming out just with that as what he was going to stand up for when there's clearly way more serious stuff. And look, and I'll add this. It's amazing. It's very clear. And Ryan Lambert says this on Puck Soup quite often that, D'Angelo is just the guy saying it, but there's a good chance half the league or whatever in and around that think the same things that he does. That wouldn't surprise me either. And the proof in the pudding of that is Tony DeAngelo signs in Carolina. You know what happens after that? Other fucking guys signed there.
Yeah.
If they really wanted to make a move, they'd be like, no, I'm not. They would and publicly be like, I'm not playing for a team that values this. And you know what? They just said, you know what? Fuck it. I don't care. I don't know, man. It's very
money talks.
They're making it's not money. It's not money talks. It's money's more important.
That's I think that's what that means.
I want to think it's close. I don't know that it's a 1-for-1, but my point is it's money over values,
right?
Or unless you don't think that there's nothing wrong with the values,
right?
So that's I saw that happening. I was like, wow, these guys just don't give a shit. And I said, it was like the whatever the guy, I don't even care enough to remember the guy's name in Montreal. All these Bergevin and whatever the owner of the team. It's clear they didn't care. They were going to make up any excuse under the sun to make it work. The league doesn't care with Chicago. Players don't care. The players didn't care enough to say something in Chicago while they were there, and now they're too busy pointing fucking fingers everywhere instead of saying something, which they all could have been afraid for their job, which is also important to say, but convoluted in hockey culture and all that kind of nonsense.
Yep.
Everyone's very quick. So again, this is that conflicting thing that we talked about Chris with from Anti-Flag.
Yeah.
How do you believe the things that you do wholeheartedly and push for change and positivity and not in the name of progress, in the name of just being a decent human being?
Right.
How do you do that? I struggle with this all the time. How do you watch the sport? How are you saying this is for everybody?
Yeah.
The players themselves, they're putting rainbow tape on their stick and they're going to be like, also, I'm going to sign with on purpose. They get to do this. They sign with Carolina after D'Angelo. You don't I'm gonna look it up. Who signed after D'Angelo? I don't want to see anything. I don't want to see them promoting anything like that because it is purely performative and it's disgusting. How do you do that? How are we supposed to watch this sport and promote it? And just like it is just a daily struggle whenever I read.
From a paperwork standpoint, do you think it's possible that said player already agreed to negotiations for some reason or another? Tony DeAngelo's, deal was announced first, and then that came out after.
It's possible.
I think you have to at least say it's a possibility because we don't know.
All right, I can put that caveat in there. That's fine.
But the sentiment is still correct. You're still right.
And that's even, Seth Jones wanting to go to Chicago.
Yeah, that was puzzling. That was puzzling.
It's all the same. They don't.
And again, devil's advocate. I have to play it thanks to my father because that's the way he raised me. His brother was already there. So it's like, I want to go to Chicago because I want to play with my brother. He didn't care about the other stuff. Doesn't affect him.
No, I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole thing, but there's so much you can't compartmentalize because you're enabling something else by saying,
I understand.
I want to, you can want to go somewhere for a certain reason. If a restaurant has a great menu and beer, but they support some really not great stuff, so you just go and ignore it. And people do. People still
do it.
And it's controversial, right? I know no free ads, so I'm not naming who I'm thinking about. But that's a huge problem because it's all performative at that point. You're and we all do that to some degree. We all do that. We can complain about certain billionaires and then still buy stuff from their websites and be like, well, what are we supposed to do? And which is bullshit. There's plenty of other things you can do. But it's disappointing to see that where it's very clear they're there for themselves. And I don't know. I don't know what they're supposed to do, but what they're doing isn't it. So let's end on a super.
Let's end the show on a high note. Tonight was the first night that the UBS Arena was illuminated. And if you didn't see it, head over to the New York Islanders Twitter, head over to the UBS Arena Twitter, or head over to my Twitter, or John's Twitter, or the NHP Twitter.
You were there not too long ago, right?
Yes, I was there not too long ago.
What did you think? I don't think did we talk about it on the show?
Did.
How did we not talk?
Yeah, we did.
Was I not there? Was it with
you?
Joe?
Were there? You were there. It was. I want to say it's almost 10 episodes now. Back in February. Back in May.
Episode 70, by the way. Congratulations.
Yeah, episode 70 episodes in. How cool. But it was. I'm sure it looked so much better today than it did when I was there because of how great it looks illuminated for the first time. But it was still immaculate when I saw it, and it was still just bare walls, nothing. But you could see what's going on, and
I'm so excited to go.
The whole thing is just going to be the greatest arena.
I hope it's not like
all arenas expensive. Right now.
I hope the tickets are reasonable.
That might be the caveat, but that remains to be seen. We'll see what happens. I think that wraps it up. We want to say thank you to DraftKings. Remember to use that promo code THPN. I want to say thank you to the Hockey Podcast Network, the Hockey Writers, and of course, all of you, our listeners.
You guys are killing it lately.
Yes.
Whatever is going on, whatever's in the water, whatever's happening, you guys are killing it lately. We're so ecstatic about the response in the off season, which isn't always the most exciting stuff. So we appreciate if you've made it this far. An extra thank you. Double thank you because we do appreciate the support, the listens. We do this for us, but we also do it for you. We really appreciate that. Make sure to please rate and review as well if you can.
We always, are encouraging feedback and look forward to feedback. We want to know if you like the show, if you don't like the show, and why you might not like the show, so we can continue to put out the best show there for you. You can rate and review on all platforms, by the way. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all at Nassman Hockey, and you can find our work at thehockeywriters.com. Look out for an article from me tomorrow morning or today as you're hearing this. So if you haven't seen it yet, it's out. And until next time, everybody, let's go Islanders.